Now, I will take 15 minutes more, then we will move on to our doubt session in case anyone have any kind of doubts. Since we are discussing about functions, we saw that we were providing some arguments to the function when we were doing a product. Okay, when we are doing something, let's say even when we were using the enumerate function, okay, we are using is instance function, or even when we are running, let's say, a list function. List is also a function, correct? It asks us for an argument. It is asking, give me something so I can convert that into a list. Okay, that is how your functions are created. They are asking for arguments. So sometimes you can have an argument with the function, sometimes you cannot have, because early in the beginning we saw that the parameters and argument through which we pass the values to the function, and these are absolutely optional. Okay, these are absolutely optional. Now let's see some arguments, the way we deal with it and how can we avoid errors in case if we face any. This is a function which I have defined called greet. It takes two arguments, name and message. This is the doc string. This function greets to the person with a provided message. We are using print hello 01 format name message. I'm calling the function greet Satish, good morning, and I run it. It ran perfectly. It did not give me any issues. Now there comes a catch. What if I provide the name but do not message? And let's say what if I provide just the message but not the name? How is the function, or how is Python going to deal with that? Let's see the first instance. I provided the name and I did not provide the message. Means I provided the first argument but did not provide the second argument. I ran it. It gave me an error saying that missing. Okay, greet, which is a function, it is saying missing one required positional argument message. I did not provide message. Let's say I just provide a comma. I ran it. It does not work. Okay. Once we have these kind of things available, it means they are positional arguments and you have to provide them. Okay. You have to provide it. Otherwise, it is going to give you an error, something like this. So this is how your function argument works out. Now there are different kind of arguments. Sometimes there are default arguments. Okay, this is the first kind of argument. Default argument is something when you know that user might not provide you a specific argument and you want a normal or a default value to be printed in case user is not providing me any argument. Okay, let's say I'm providing the name, but I'm not providing the I have provide what. Okay, this is a function which I'm defining. The first argument is name. The second argument is message. What I'm doing here, I'm providing a value to this variable, which is message, good morning. Now, this is a value which I'm specifically defining. Why I'm defining? In case user does not provide it, when my function is going to return the value or is going to print the value, it is going to print good morning by default. The doc string says this function greets to a person with the provided message. If the message is not provided, it defaults to good morning. Print hello 01 format name message. Satish, good night. Now, I provided good night here, but it was good morning here. If I'm providing any positional argument, or sorry, if I'm providing any argument, and even if that argument is already defined as a default argument in the function definition, it overrides that. So good night overrode good morning. That is why good night is printed. Now, if I just do greet Satish and I write, it says hello Satish, good morning, because I did not provide the second argument. Any issues in this? Okay, good. Perfect. Now, it is very important. There is a rule while defining those functions which has default arguments. If you do not do that, you will face an error. Let's say I provided this argument and I provided this argument. It's valid. Means it looks valid. It does not means looking at this, it does not says okay, it does not yell at me at the sudden moment. But the moment I run it, it gives me an error. It says non-default argument follows the default argument. So we need to keep in mind that the default argument are in the extreme right. So a good morning or the message, the default argument will be at the end. Otherwise, you will receive that error. We will get a syntax error. Non-default argument follows the default argument. So Python does not allow us to do this. Now, the second kind of arguments which Python takes is keyword arguments, or some people might even call it KWRs. KWRs allows you to pass the keyworded variable length to arguments as to a function. You should use ** KWRs if you want to handle named arguments in a function. So it's actually very useful. It's very useful. What you can do here is you provided def. Okay, you defined a function. You wrote def greet and you just wrote this ** KWRs. That's all. That is all you do. Then you provided a doc string. This function greets to a person with a specific provided message. Then what you are doing here, you are printing, you are conditioning, you are checking if KWRs is true. Then, okay, if KWRs is true, print 0, 1 means name and message. Let's say, let's run this program. What if let's run it in a normal way, then we will experiment with it. What did I do here? I provided the arguments manually here. I provided name, Satish, message, good morning. What if I do not provide a message? What will happen? It will give me an error. Obviously, it will give me an error because it was expecting me to do something with it. When we are dealing with keyword arguments, and if we are using these arguments in some or the other way, while returning something or while printing something, we should get those things very cleared when we are using these things. The exact same logic is being followed by arbitrary arguments. Arbitrary arguments is nothing but when we're using arbitrary arguments, sometimes, okay, when do we use it generally? Sometimes we do not know in advance the number of arguments which will be passed to a function. Okay, we do not know how many arguments might get passed to a function. We can have number of elements, n number of elements. Then what we do, we use a normal star and we provide the argument name. In our case, we are using names here. And then what I'm doing, print names, simple. On the other hand, what I'm doing for name in names, hello and name, I'm using this normal print statement. And I'm giving this as an argument, Satish, Moli, Naveen, Shrikant. The moment I run it, first of all, print names. These all are printed here. Then this name came here and this loop ran. Let's say I only provide a single argument. It will work very well. It will not yell at me that you have made an error or some or the other way. So it is very useful. Any issues with keyword arguments or arbitrary arguments? Yes, correct. Thank you, Arun, for the additional information. Okay, perfect. Since we have 5 minutes, I think we can discuss. Let's discuss recursive functions. Recursive functions. Okay. Recursive functions are very different kind of functions, but very useful. Okay. They are very useful, but sometimes they become very complex, very messy, and people do not want to use them. Sometimes they really like it. Now, let's say a normal factorial task. Okay, factorial is a very good example to define or to deal with. Yes. Check or to utilize the leverage of a recursive function. Let's say I provide you a variable which is 5, and I ask you to give me the factorial of 5. What you can do, you can, for I in range of n plus 1, equals to I. It gave me 120. Simple, normal, nothing very fancy. If I do 15, it will give me the factorial. Okay, this is a long number. I don't want that. Simple, it is working absolutely fine. I wrote it correctly. It's a good way. We can utilize it, but sometimes recursive functions make it life easy. Make it even better. The way we can use a recursive function is like this. So first of all, what do we mean by recursive or recursion? Recursion means a function, okay? Something which is going to become on and on and on and on and on continuously. It will happen till the time a specific condition is being satisfied. It will continuously happen. It's kind of a while loop, or it's kind of a for loop, but in a function way. Let's see. Def. I'm defining a function, factorial, and I'm providing it a value called num. Then I want to return 1 if num is 1. Else, what I want the number to be multiplied by factorial of num. Now, fact is equals to real of 5 and maximum recursion that exceeded it. Okay, why? Why? Factorial num. Return 1 if num is equals to 1. Perfect. Else num multiplied by factorial num minus 1. Sorry. Num minus 1. Where is minus 1? Yes. Okay. So whatever I wrote here, this function is doing the exact same thing without a loop, because it is kind of a loop. Now let's break this function out in a proper way. Let's take the value 5 and then work on this function. When I call this function 5, the way what is coming here, the value is coming here as 5. Okay, in the very first time. Now it will come here. I'm asking it to return 1. if the value of num is 1, which is not true. Okay, else it is going to else block at the moment. What is doing here? The value of num is 5. Okay, the value of num is 5. I'm asking it to multiply it by factorial, the same function, okay, the same function by num minus 1, means 5 minus 1. Now let's see what is the second, what is going to happen in the second time. And when it became 4, okay, 5 minus 1 is 4. Now this thing is calling this function again. Okay, this factorial 4 is calling this function again, and now factorial 4 is running. Now this is factorial 4, and this is 4 minus 1, 3. Okay, now on the next time, this factorial 3 is going to run. Factorial 3 will run now. And this will become 2, this will become 3. At the next time, your factorial 2 will run. Minus 1 will be 1, this is going to be 2, and this will also be. Now, what I have factorial 1 here. And factorial of 0. Now, let's take it in a reverse way. Now, we will start from the descending order. Factorial 1, okay. Factorial 1, what is going? Factorial 1 is going to give me 1. Okay, so the value which I got from here is 1. Now this 1 value, okay, this 1 will come here because the factorial 1 value we have got it, which is 1. This 1 will come here. Okay. Now this if condition is not satisfying, it is not going to return 1. It is going to return the else condition. In this case, which is going to be 2. Now the value of factorial 2 is going to be returned as 2. This 2 is going here. This 2 is going here. Now, what is it is going to return? It is going to return 6. Okay, it is returning 6. So value of factorial 3 is 6 now. We will use this value of factorial 3 here, which is 6. Here's 6. Now, what is going to return? It is going to return 24. Now, the value of factorial 24 is being used here, which is going to return 120, which is your final value. So this is how your recursion function is being utilized. Depending on the value, okay, depending on the actual value, let's say if I do 10 here, factorial 10 will run, factorial 9 will run, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All these functions will run in just this function. Okay, you don't have to use any loop when you are using recursive functions, when you are using a recursion technique. Any issues in this? Okay, so this is all recursion, means this is all from the function sense which I wanted to call out. Only lambda function was left. Okay, we can, okay, just one thing which I wanted to call out one more time. When we are using the recursive functions, there are a couple of disadvantages. Okay, sometimes the logic behind the recursive function is hard to follow through. Okay, sometimes it becomes really hard because you have to imagine it. Literally, you have to imagine it every time. So when we were doing the factorial thing, we could do it because it was we gave the value 5. But let's say if I'm giving the value 100, okay, if I'm providing the value 100, I have to imagine that much. So that is something a different task. And I have also read it that recursive function takes extra amount of memory. That is the second thing. Third thing is recursive functions are hard to debug. Yes. There may be repeated computation in different branches, thus reducing efficiency and performance. Yes.